I don't know, I guess for me it's been a lot about sort of what it means to connect. And a movie that is centered around someone who's wearing a mask the whole time, this big head, really starts to make you ask those kinds of questions. Like, what does it mean to connect? How important is it? How terrifying is it? You know? And like, what part does making art play in that? You know, like, so for Jon, he just really wants us to make art that a lot of people will respond to. And like, it's not what's in our nature as a band. It's just like not, you know, we just happen to be people that don't make art like that. In particular, Clara, I think she knows how much you have to sacrifice to do that. I don't know how she knows that, but she does. But you know, that's also another thing about connecting. Like, you know, I guess there's a sort of connection that's made by like making something that tons and tons of people like. There's a different kind of connection that's made by making something that's so specific and particular that maybe only a few people really connect to it. You know, so I think it has something to do with that. I do think she has his best interests at heart, and I think she loves him very much, and I think she has kind of based her whole identity on her relationship with him. But her relationship with him has a lot of holes in it, including that he wears a plastic head around all the time. And so I think she's often very disappointed, and her feelings are hurt, but she doesn't let that out ever. You know, I mean, like, she'd rather die than be in that kind of weak position. And yet, it always comes out, you know, somewhere or other. When you really feel that way, it leaks out. I think that's kind of interesting to watch, how that happens. Well, yeah, they have a very powerful antagonistic relationship, which, you know, ends up also, I mean, I think when you have such a clash with someone, it also reveals an intimacy which gets revealed between them. But, you know, they really do think about the world so differently, and they are in each other's way. So, in a way, sometimes I would think of Jon as like, he had to be destroyed in order to keep us on track. And, you know, as the movie goes on, he becomes more and more hurtful to Clara. I just thought the only way to do it, the funniest thing, the most real thing, is just to act like that's his head. And so what it means is he's somebody who it's almost impossible to connect with, who's very self-consumed and internal, even though sometimes he does things that are huge and that are very like performative. Really frank is like almost unreachable. And so Clara, I mean, I know I didn't plan this, but just acting with someone who's in the head, I had no idea what that would be like. I ended up sort of becoming someone who, even though she's very like, she's very performed herself and very held back and very tough in a lot of ways, I think inside she's someone who like really, really deeply wants to connect and is over and over again disappointed. I think Lenny is great. He was so smart and kind and incredibly collaborative, because so much of the movie, for me, was kind of imaginative. There are a lot of, Clara doesn't talk very much, and so the script was a very open map for me of who Clara was going to be. I had to come up with a lot of it myself because she's quiet. And Lenny was incredibly interested and open about not only, I think, the sort of unusual tack I had on playing her, he was cool with it. But also, you know, also like stuff I'd come up with, I'd be like, oh, well, what if we did it like this? And he's like, great, I love that idea. And I think it takes, and I didn't always, you know, but enough of the time that I felt like a collaborator. And it takes somebody who has a real confidence in themselves and in their own power and ability as a director to let other people's ideas in. I think it's like no other script I've ever read. And I think as we've shot it, it is so unusual. And not just in a way like, let's just be unusual for the sake of being unusual. I think it's really, it's just like nothing I've ever come across. And that excited me.